girl on fire. I'm not a victim, a girl on fire. I'll stand my ground, girl on fire. I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. I'm a mother, a daughter, a sister, a friend. I'm every woman. I have taken up arms and I choose to defend all that I hold dear. Independent and strong, you will not keep me down. You can't break me.
Vinette Oxley here from Tac Shack Tactical TV and Ghost of Girls on Fire, 16 Days of Action for No Violence Against Women and Children. I'm here with the beautiful Jessica and her husband Jacques. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We're going to start with a loaded question. Who is Jessica? Can you tell us who you are?
I am many things. I'm a wife, I'm a mum, I'm a sister, a daughter, I'm a business professional, I'm a volunteer trauma counselor with the Victim Empowerment Program, which is part of CPF, the Santon CPF. I am a mum to beautiful fur babies.
Yes, one of them are lying around like doggies do.
Yeah.
He might join us a little bit later, but it doesn't look like that in this heat.
And I am also involved in a Christian ministry program called the Leader Impact Ministry, and work with business professionals in the workplace. And that's all I can think of right now. I know there are a few other things, but yeah, for now, that's it. That's what we'll go with, okay?
Why do you see yourself as a warrior? Because I looked at your story and you are a warrior.
Because I'm fighting.
You don't give up.
Yeah, I'm fighting, and it's been a long fight, and it's a very hard fight. So it's not like the little fights you'd have with your siblings. This is it's an ongoing fight that is relevant to more than just me.
Absolutely. So, when and what triggered your memory of abuse from your father? And what is your story? And I know it's a very hard question.
Okay. So, in 2012, in December 2012, my parents were living with us during that time. And there was an incident at my house, and my father, he was upset, and he was scolding my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, Gabrielle. And he was really angry, and he grabbed her, he held her arms, and he was trying to, I think he was asking her something, but he held her and he frightened her. When I walked into the room, that was what I saw. And his back was facing me, and he was holding her two arms. When I looked at her face, it was as if I was looking at myself. It was this moment of deja vu. It was me looking at myself as an 11-year-old girl. That look, that expression, the way she sounded when she was saying, "Please stop." It was horrifying, and I guess that was the moment that my brain knew that I needed to remember. And so that Pandora's box of memories just came flooding back. There's a lot more to it, but that was the moment.
When did he start abusing you that you can remember? So you put that into a separate part of your brain that, for a very long time, obviously.
Mm-hmm. You asked when he started. The abuse started when I was 5 years old. It was just before I turned 6. That's what I remember.
Sure. And you decided to lay charges. That must have not been an easy decision.
No, it was not. I remembered, excuse me, in 2012. And although I studied these things, I never applied anything to myself, obviously because I didn't know. And I think the textbooks don't give you enough of an idea of what it means to have repressed memories come back. It took a long time. For a while I thought I was going mad, because I didn't know whether these were real memories or things that I was making up in my head, and then the thought of that drove me nuts, because I thought, what kind of a horrible, sick person would imagine these things? So I realized I needed help. I needed help so that I needed help to get out of my head, but also get some glimmer of sanity back, because it was all consuming. And Jacques is a lawyer, and I talked with him about things like this, and it just all seemed hopeless. And I didn't know what kind of help I could get, and I'd stopped writing. I used to love writing in my journal, and I'd stopped writing because there was nothing good that I had to say. It was terrible. Remembering just seemed to have killed, I want to say, all the happiness, but it just completely killed every bit of joy that there was in my life. And eventually, therapy is expensive. We had to save money so that I could go for therapy, and I eventually went for therapy because of another incident. I was with my mom, and we were nearby we were in our doctor's rooms when just outside in the parking lot was an armed robbery. And while my mom was being examined, we all had to suddenly take cover in the doctor's rooms. And when I was pregnant with our second child, we were involved in an attempted hijacking. So the gunshots triggered something horrible in me, and colleagues of mine thought that I was experiencing PTSD symptoms because of that. And one of my colleagues is a doctor, and he gave me details of this therapist, and he made me promise that I would go to him. I only went because I gave my word. And that's what got me working through the memories and, putting together what was going on in my head, and realizing then that I did not make these things up.
So what happened with you after you saw your daughter being manhandled by your dad?
I told him in that moment, when I remembered, I knew then that I had to protect my child. So I told him, get your hands off my child and leave her alone. And when he looked at me, he knew that I remembered. And so he just got up and left the room.
Okay. But you were not the only person or child that he abused. Your cousin was also abused by him?
At the time, and even when I was in therapy, I didn't know for sure about anybody else. What I did know was that pedophiles do not stop.
They don't.
So I knew that if he stopped with me, it was because he had found another victim, or maybe and there were probably other victims at the same time as me, but I didn't know any of all of that. I didn't know about anybody else. You also asked, how I came to lay charges. After therapy, I was able to, my daughter got older. She was reaching her teen years. My children were struggling with this new me, this very sad me. And I had to tell them, as best as I could. And instead of it being something that brought us closer together, it really caused a big wedge between my daughter and I. And then one day, when we talked about it, she said, "Mommy, if it was somebody else, tell me, what would you tell them to do? What would you advise them? How would you help somebody else? Why are you not doing anything about this?" And I had no answer to give her then, but we both knew what the answer was. And I was not doing anything about it because I thought there wasn't anything I could do. It was just somebody having to believe me and take me at my word. And I thought I just need to, people use words like move on, put it behind you. And I thought those were the things I needed to do. And therapy was not helping me do that. One of the things the therapist told me to do is write it all down. And I'm really simplifying and summarizing. I'm not talking about the torture of the process of therapy, but I just want you to get the gist of what happened. So he said, write it all down, and after you've written it, read it, and then burn it, just so you can see how far you've come. It didn't help me. And nothing I did gave me peace. And I knew why, but I was too scared to admit it. And eventually when I did, I also had to prepare myself for the daunting task ahead. And I told Jacques, I think I need to lay charges. One, because I don't know who else there is out there. I don't know what other vulnerable people there are. And this was in the beginning of 2017. But I told Jacques, okay, you as a lawyer, you cannot be my lawyer. You have to be my husband. And I know you don't agree with me, but please just go with me on this. And I went to a lawyer who also a business associate, and I told them this is what I want to do, and I asked if they could help me. And I was told then it's very difficult. I think we were told that the possibility of not going anywhere is very high, but it's not impossible. Something like that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, early in my career, mainly when I was doing my articles, I did do criminal defense work. So I knew what the process was, especially, and I had done rape cases in my time that I did criminal defense work. So I knew what the process was in terms of being on the stand and being cross-examined. So that was just my concern, was whether she'd be able to emotionally handle that. And then the process of laying the charges, knowing that it will have to be her testimony against theirs. There's no physical evidence anymore. So I knew that it would be a very long and difficult process. Well, probably not anticipating the extent of what it was. But
Because at that stage you didn't know.
But I think the first step was to say let's not just walk into a charge office, which is the normal way that you lay criminal charges, but to rather approach an attorney, get their assistance for them to draft an affidavit at least that's got everything version in writing, and then with that assistance take that next step and go to the charge office. As she said, at that stage she didn't know of anyone else. She only found that out shortly after she decided that, and spoke to her cousin at her uncle's funeral. And that's when she found out that there was actually another victim as well.
Okay, Jock, I just want to ask you, it must have been very difficult for you as a partner, as a husband, to see this happening to your wife, being tortured by these memories. It must have been really difficult as well, because there's somebody that you love, and you can see that they're suffering.
Exactly. And you feel helpless because there's not much that you can do to take that away. And even when it comes to, as she says, these processes, I'm still in that where, I do what I can from a sort of a professional point of view, but you can't just look at it as when you're involved in it just as a legal professional. You can't. So I think the most difficult thing is just that however much you want to help someone, there's a certain feeling of powerlessness that you have, that you just can't take that pain away. You can't just take that experience away. So that makes it difficult, yeah.
So Jock mentioned that you laid charges, and then at a family member's funeral, your cousin came forward. She's younger than you?
Yes, she was, she was 5 years old. So her abuse happened when I was at university.
Wow.
And so I went, it's my mum's brother who had passed away. And when I went down for the funeral, she just came up to me and said, "Listen, I really need to talk to you about your father." So I thought that my father had visited them and maybe they were upset with him about being there, since they knew that him and my mum were separated. And nobody in the family knew anything about what was going on with me, what I was doing. It was all kept very quiet. The only people who knew were a few people who I had taken into confidence, but this was not public knowledge. So when I went to speak with my cousin, to say that I was bowled over by what she told me doesn't even begin to describe. I really had no idea that that was what she was going to say. She just said, "When I was a little child, your father molested me." And the next thing she said just broke my heart. She said, "I always wanted to tell you. And I used to cry then because you were never at home." And it was the time when I was at university. And when I was at university, I kept myself busy all the time. Now, when I think back about all of those things that I did as I was growing up, it makes sense.
The blocks
Yes.
come together.
And so much about me and the way I am and what drives me and the kind of people I'm drawn to. It all makes sense now. I can understand why I'm drawn to certain people. So anyway, after my uncle's funeral, sometime afterwards, I told her the same thing happened to me. But that's all that I said to her. I didn't want to influence her in any way, so I was careful not to say more about my story to her. But I told her, I've decided I'm not going to keep quiet. I'm going to lay charges. No pressure, but if you want to do that also, you can join me. So she thought about it, and then she decided she wanted to lay charges as well. I think she felt comfortable to do it because she had somebody with her.
So your father's modus operandi was the same, with her, exactly the same. There is probably other victims out there that you don't know about it, because it's usually not one or two people. That's just the way it is. But you said it's going to stop here, and your legal battle was...
It was a nightmare.
It was humongous. I read it and I couldn't believe what I was reading. Let's just go back before we go to the legal battles, because that is actually a story in itself. Your mom was not aware of it. When you laid charges, was she still together with your father, or were they already divorced?
No. When I laid charges, I think she was already divorced. But as soon as my mom found out, as soon as I told her, she separated from my father. So I told Jacques a month after I remembered. So I remembered everything in December 2012. And in January the next year, I told Jacques. And about 2 or 3 months after that, I told my mom. And I was scared to tell my mom because I didn't know whether she would believe me or not. And yeah, I eventually told her. And the moment she found out, everything changed for her. She didn't say much to me. She didn't say anything to me, but she, sorry about that.
No problems.
She, that was the end of their relationship.
And she believed you, which is great. We've got another puppy.
Yes. This is Nala.
Hello, Nala. So it is, Jock, did you feel that something was going on? Because there was a month in between when you had your memories and until you you were told.
I didn't expect.
That was the nightmare month.
So my in-laws came to live with us in 2006.
Yeah.
And initially, well, there were some initial difficulties and so forth, and then there were some. I just saw how difficult my father-in-law could be, and incidents that that caused rifts for a while and so forth. So sometimes those things happen in the family. I sort of initially tried to just live with that. So they were on our property but in a separate cottage, garden cottage. So that was that was sort of the setup, and there was at least we could have some of our own privacy and so on. But the incident in December was pretty intense. I was at the office when it happened. I got back home. It was quite hectic. There had been sort of previous incidents, as I said, where there was friction, disagreements, arguments involving him. So this was quite bad. We did not spend Christmas together. We spent it on our own, even though we were
On the same property.
on the same property. So it was of a more intense degree than anything previously. But I think nothing prepared me for when just after New Year,
6th of January.
she called me one morning and she said, I need to tell you something. So that was the last thing that I imagined, what she was going to tell me. I did not expect that at all.
That's difficult. And your mom? Must have been difficult for her as well, because she didn't suspect anything. Or do you think she did?
No, my mom was. She was quite a broken woman. She had been physically abused by him her whole marriage. She had at that stage reached a point where she could not make her own decision about anything. Not because it wasn't possible for her to, but her spirit was so broken that she could not do anything if it wasn't about him, for him.
And that's a normal
Yeah.
abuse cycle if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And so, because of that, I expected that when I told my mother, she would not believe me. From the time I remember, there were a few times where I hinted at things when I spoke to him and she was there. And I found out later that, she would ask him, what is Jessica talking about? And he'd say, I don't know, she's gone mad. She's talking nonsense. Just ignore her. So when my mom just cried, I think she didn't know what to say to me, but she cried a lot. And then when I cried, she would just hold me. The only thing she kept saying was, I'm so sorry, I let you down. I never once thought that my mother knew when I was growing up. I didn't think that she knew.
Your dad seems like a very clever and a very charming person. That's all I've read the court papers and stuff like that, and he just sounds like a very clever and a very charming person.
Well, she said that when my grandfather was a minister, so I literally grew up in the church. She said when she tried to talk to my grandparents about him beating her and beating us all up, about the abuse that she suffered, he was so good that my grandfather eventually said, I don't think my son is doing anything wrong. If he beats you up, it's probably because you did something really bad.
Yeah.
So you're probably the one at fault.
It makes me very angry. But unfortunately that happens a lot in South Africa specifically.
No, it happens everywhere actually.
Yeah.
But we know, I think in South Africa, people are just talking about it more now.
Absolutely. Your sister defended your dad throughout this, and they still speak. And
She's with my dad. Growing up, my sister and my father were never close. They had sort of a love-hate relationship. So it is still a little bit unbelievable that they are now so close. And she told me when she found out that I had laid charges, she told me, she met me at Mug and Bean, and she said she knows what he is and she will not let me do anything to him. She will not allow me to do anything to him.
why do you think this is? Can you speculate?
So one theory is Stockholm syndrome. I cannot prove it, but maybe she's also a victim. I don't know if she was one of his victims. That's the only thing that could hint at success. I mean, hint at this making sense.
Yeah.
But I cannot figure it out. I cannot understand why my sister would side with him. She claims it's love. She's told me, oh, this is my father. But that's such a ridiculous argument to make to me. He's my father as well. That's got nothing to do with it. And even when she testified in court, she blatantly lied so ridiculously. It was so bad that her testimony was totally rejected. But it didn't stop her from supporting him. She's cut ties with us. I love my sister. I will always love my sister. She's 8 years younger than me. I think this is one of the biggest betrayals that I don't know if I'll ever come to terms with it. I don't know.
What was your dad's reaction when he got served? Have you got any idea? Did he phone you? Did he?
No, he didn't phone me because my father is also a very violent man. And when he knew that when he knew that I told Jacques, he got quite violent with Jacques. And he would lose his temper all the time. We were living in terror in our house. Eventually, we had to get a protection order against him. So he wasn't allowed to make contact with us. We heard, though, that he called his family and he sobbed his eyes out and said that, I'm so terrible. So there are a few things that have been said. He said that I stole all his money, and Jacques and I got together and found some legal way to get rid of him, and it's all a vendetta. I'm possessed. All my studying and all my intelligence has made me just snap. So yeah, there are a few things. Oh, the latest that I've heard is that I framed him.
You framed him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were living in this sort of condition from about January 2013 to about May.
So 2013?
Yes.
Okay.
So the incident happened in December 2012. She told me what he had done in January. And as I said, it was a very awkward situation.
They were still living on your property?
Still living on our property.
We had gone to a church.
We had not really actually been speaking terms until he was in a six-car pileup on Grayston Drive. I still believe that he had purposefully taken incorrect medication that the pharmacist, that he knew the pharmacist had dispensed to him, and he took that and caused a six-car pileup on the Grayston Drive off-ramp. Suddenly, after that incident, started talking to us again and gave me instructions to go and assist him with the claim against the pharmacist.
Because the insurance was all in our name.
But there was eventually another incident where, as I said, he got physical with me. And it was after that we took out a protection. Actually, I had taken out the protection order with Jessica secondary. So I went to Randburg Magistrates Court, got the protection order, got it served on him, and that's when he eventually then left. They seized his firearms, and it was at that stage then that he actually left. He packed all of his personal belongings under police escort because we just didn't want to let him in on the property without supervision because of this incident again. And then that was the separation. So between January and May, it was really quite awkward. But then he eventually at least left. May 2013, and then eventually my mother-in-law went through and took the divorce proceedings through in, I think, 2017. But through that time, Jessica was busy with therapy, and that was quite an intense procedure. It was only towards the end of 2017, or towards 2017, that she decided to lay the charges. We went to see the attorneys, and that was only in 2018 that the formal charges were actually then laid, with going to sentence SAPS with an affidavit, going through the whole process of laying the charges.
The legal process was an absolute nightmare. How many prosecutors did you go through? It looked like 5 or 6.
So the first one was the head of prosecutions, who had to investigate the details of the docket, the case, and then make a decision about whether to take it to court or not.
And
she was excellent.
Yeah.
And
Naidu, I think is...
I can't, no, Vaneshri Mudliya.
Woodley, sorry.
Woodley, yes. And so she interviewed me, she interviewed my cousin, and she also interviewed my father. And it seemed like it was the same that the police did. I did not know the details of his statement. I was at that stage not allowed to know it. But I was told that he was arrested because of what his statement said. And I found out later on, in his statement, he admitted to the abuse.
He did?
Yeah, but he said that nothing, in a nutshell, he said that I was a willing participant, and the gist of it, was that it was me who seduced him, and his regret was that he didn't deal with me like a father, a good Christian father should deal with a child like me, but instead he enjoyed it.
So
sorry, that is ridiculous. I'm sorry.
But what I realized when I heard what his statement was, I immediately just clicked that, and why he would be arrested, because I just noted that on his own version, he had admitted to sexual assault. Not
of a minor.
He didn't admit to rape, but he clearly, on his own version. So it made complete sense for me that he was actually then arrested.
And how long was he in jail for then?
That was the thing. He was arrested, and there was supposed to have been a bail hearing, and there was no bail hearing. But that was when everything started with my sister. I don't know. We don't know how it happened, but he was just released on warning. He spent the night in jail, but there was no hearing. And, that's...
Did he withdraw that statement afterwards? Because that's...
No.
No.
He didn't.
And...
That's what he went to trial with.
Wow. So, but why did you go through so many prosecutors? Some of them were all right, but some of them were actually terrible. They victimized you further.
Yeah, I was telling you about Vaneshri Mudli. She handed it over to Val Mellis. Mm-hmm. And Val Mellis was then known to be one of the best prosecutors.
Yes, I read up about that.
Yeah, but Val Mellis was ill at the time, and she was, I don't know the details, but she had been on sick leave for over 6 months. And then it was given over to somebody else who was also, I cannot remember her name now, I think it's Phyllis or Patricia somebody. And she interviewed me and decided it was going to go through. Oh, sorry, between Val Mellis and the new prosecutor, this file just fell away. And nothing was, So then I contacted Vaneshri Mudli again and said, something's going on here. Nothing's been happening.
Wow.
So she went back to the district head of prosecutions, and he said this case has to go to trial. So that's when it was Patricia.
Well, the docket was essentially reopened. I mean, she initially laid the charges in 2018, but if you look at the case number on the record, you'll see that it's a 2019 case number.
So the docket disappeared?
The docket somehow disappeared or was
and
closed.
Then documents from Simone's case was closed. Somebody called Simone saying they were from the
That's your
court.
cousin.
Yes, saying they decided not to go ahead with the case. And somebody called the prosecutor's office, pretending to be Simone, and said that she decided to drop
That's
the
not
charges.
true, and she never dropped the charges.
Yeah. So when I went,
I couldn't figure out from the papers what was going on there. So somebody, it was the whole crooks ball. You thinking about it.
so when we told the investigating officer, Sergeant Supersad, what was going
He
on,
sounds like a nice guy.
he was excellent. He and his team came up to Johannesburg just to avoid to help with some of the inconvenience. They interviewed Jacques and my mum, and Jacques' statement went missing. Thankfully, we had made copies of everything. We had.
The statement was a one-pager confirming what she told me in January 2013.
But that got lost as well.
Yes, and it was weird, inexplicable. So then we had the prosecutor who interviewed me and reopened Simone, my cousin's case, and then come to the trial, she wasn't there. It was a new person. And we were told, no, this is all fine, just go ahead. But we get to court on the day that the trial's supposed to start, and the prosecutor there was Shana Naidu. She hadn't even opened my file.
She didn't know what was going on at all.
Nothing. And she's the one who, firstly, she couldn't even speak properly, and it was really difficult to communicate with her. And the first thing she said was, your father said he'd plead guilty to a lesser charge. Will you take it? And I said, no. She said, but listen, this is not going to go anywhere, so, think about it. And when I was really upset about that. And I asked, did you read my file?
And she didn't.
That's when she opened it and started, just quickly paging through things to look at the charge sheet. And then she asked me to go into the interview room with her. And it was ridiculous. The way she spoke, the things that she said, there were dolls there. And that was for little children. And I said, I'm an adult. I can communicate. I can use words.
Sorry, I had this.
She said, no, use the doll. Show me.
What the hell? I'm sorry. That is just.
She said that. She didn't want. I said, I can use words. I don't. She said, no, use the doll. Don't be afraid. And I thought, woman, do you know what you're doing?
Obviously not.
She when she heard that Jacques, an attorney, she asked him to come inside the room because she wanted his advice on legislation. She wasn't familiar with the, what do you call it?
So what she asked me was just, I was shocked.
About the Sexual Offences Act.
Yes, because what I sort of realized from what she was asking me is that she was clearly only familiar with prosecuting cases that had occurred after the Sexual Offences Act was promulgated in 2007. She had never dealt with any case that was
that's also not fair on
a common law case of rape and sexual assault. So she was clearly out of her depth in terms of that. She asked me some questions, essentially almost looking for my advice. And as I said, I had done criminal defense work 20 years prior to that. So, and I said, well, I don't think I'm the one to answer that. That's your job. So it was a very peculiar,
shocking
type of situation that she would even do that.
It was quite traumatizing for me to have to deal with somebody who was supposed to help me, and she was firstly not prepared enough she did not take the time to review the case before walking into court. It was, if nothing else, so disrespectful. And yet she works in the sexual offences court. I couldn't understand how that is acceptable. And I did think, maybe she had too much on her plate or whatever. I'm a professional. She is as well. She knows the rules. She knows what you've got to do, what a person has to do to prepare to appear in court, to prepare for a trial. None of that was done. And then after the interview, and I think it came from a misguided good place in her heart. I choose to believe this when she said, please do me a favor, make peace with this, put it behind you. Forgive him. And I was so angry because I am constantly, even now, being preached to, being told about forgiveness. This is nothing at all about forgiveness. This is about justice. And I was in court, not looking for forgiveness or anything related to that. I laid charges. I went through with everything, as difficult as it was, because I need justice. And finding out about my cousin made that burden so much bigger.
Because you know you're not alone, and there's probably, if it was left, he was probably going to abuse somebody else.
Yes, and I was able to, I know about these things, and as difficult as it was for me, I was able to get therapy. I have the support of my husband. I have my mum with me. Simone's got her mum. She's got her husband and her family. She was not able to get therapy. She was not able to speak to anybody about it. And this is how it is in society. I mean, even with us, it was only when my statement was being finalized for the case to be open, and that was in early 2018. It was only then that Jacques and my mum were given the raw statement to read so that they knew the detail. And up to that point, so from December 2012 till then, I had not given anybody any detail of what had happened. For my case to be something that could be worked on, I had to remember specific incidents. And although there were so many, therapy helped me to remember or to be able to write down about 4 incidents. And that's what was used. There are many more. I don't remember all of them. But those 4 incidents were what the whole case was based on.
Was it hard to read?
Very.
And that's
Very
it.
hard.
Sure. What else was absolutely ridiculous is your dad's sickness or illness or faint illness. The case was postponed so many times because either he was in ICU or not in ICU, either he had a heart attack or didn't have a heart attack, fell down in court and then got caught outside smoking a cigarette with the paramedics. Was in ICU supposedly, and then the next day he was busy fishing. So he was playing the courts, and even when there was evidence of him not being ill presented to the court, nothing happened about
Yes.
it.
Well, this prosecutor who told me to forgive him, she was also one who was just not doing much to help for the trial to be heard. She accepted every doctor's note that was given without question. And then it was COVID and lockdown. And she told me, when we had trial dates set, she said, your father is old and he's categorized as a vulnerable person, so the courts will not want him to come there. And it was just left at that. But trial dates kept being set, and they were just being postponed. And she would accept the doctor's notes, but the investigating officer also looked at those and was in agreement with us about it. The doctor's notes saying that he had heart attacks were always from his GP. Not once was there a note from the hospital or the cardiologist. And I explained in court as well to the magistrate at the time, I know how he is, how he knows how to play with his medicines. He knows what medicines to not take for a couple of days. to mimic.
He's a clever man. It
Yes.
seems like he's a very clever,
Yes.
manipulative man, as
Yes.
far as I can understand what I read about this, because a lot of people were fooled by him.
Yes. And then it was being, that picture of him catching the fish, it went viral all over the country because it's big news in the fishing community. So the investigator then,
Because it was a big fish.
Yes.
Which is not that easy to catch, especially if you've just been out of ICU.
you have to have, an Iron Man's kind of strength. And my father is a strong man. That fish looked like it was a garrick, easily over 20 kilos.
And garricks is a fighting fish which fights.
And he was in the picture, he was holding it up with his left hand, and he's right-handed. With the cigarette in his mouth, the day after he gets out of ICU. So anyway, we spoke about all of that. It was being investigated. So after Shana Naidu, there was another prosecutor. But this prosecutor was just not interested in the trial going ahead at all. He shut down the case. He told the investigating officer, we are not medical professionals to question any of this. Let's not waste any time. Stop all work on it. We eventually had to write a letter, and Olivia and the Women and Men Against Child Abuse.
Olivia's from Jazreel Foundation.
Well, at that
Before
stage she
that
was
was-
with Women and Men Against Child Abuse.
Yes, I could remember that.
Yeah, so they wrote a letter to the NPA detailing the whole
Saga with this.
Yes, I had to give details of everything that had happened up to that point. And it was then when people started paying attention. And Simone and I, my cousin and I, were assigned a social worker to come to court with us. We were told then in 2021, April 2021, to go to court, and Simone testified. I also didn't mention we had to get a lawyer. We had to hire a lawyer in Durban because we needed to give somebody a watching brief with the number of prosecutors that kept, the turnover of prosecutors in this case. We had no idea what was going on. And when I said that in court, and I spoke to the magistrate about the continuous postponements, she asked me, and at that stage it was Melanie de Jager, she asked, why are you concerned? I said, because it's always being postponed.
And this is influencing your life. You
Yes.
need it to be finished.
And she said, but don't worry, this is not going away. So I said, I know it is not going away. I'll make sure that it doesn't go away. But it's being postponed indefinitely all the time. And nothing. So the case was eventually heard with the 5th prosecutor that was given my case, and the 3rd magistrate who heard it.
And there was also probation officers and DSS officers, which also had ridiculous statements made to you.
So a social worker for the Department of Social Services is also referred to as a probation officer.
Yes.
I don't know why. We had to, after the conviction, before sentencing was done, we had to do a victim impact statement, and that was given in, and then social workers, called probation officers, had to interview us and the accused. Now, this was a state case. It wasn't a civil case. So they are supposed to, I know they must always be impartial. Normal procedure is to address the complainants first. However, in this case, they spoke with my father first. And I got a call on a Monday at around lunchtime from a social worker. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I just had a nice long chat with your father. Are you aware of the case? This was after she asked to speak to Jessica Louwrens. So I thought she was, it was a weak attempt at a joke or something. So I said, of course I'm aware, I'm the complainant. She said, but yeah, I just need to make sure I'm talking to the right person. And then she said, so he told me about, everything that happened, and it was a long time ago, and, he's an old man and he's sickly. I'd like to hear from the horse's mouth. What's your story? It was so flippant, the way she spoke to me, and I don't expect to be treated, with kid gloves, but there was
You
no...
need to be treated with respect.
There was no respect at all.
Absolutely, and with professionalism, which this is neither.
So the trial started in April 21. Went back in August. It was finally concluded with, I don't know how many trips back and forth to Durban.
It was June, August.
So that happened in KZN.
Yeah, the trial took place in Durban Regional Court.
It always takes place where the crime was committed.
He was finally found guilty after the judgment proceedings was also disrupted with him
falling down,
collapsing in court. And eventually he was found guilty on all charges on 31st of August 2021. So the sentencing was supposed to be set down after the correctional supervision and the social workers' reports in October. But we get there in October and the report is not done. This is just after she got this call from the social worker.
Slash probation officer, which
Yes.
they call.
And she actually complained to Department of Social Services about this person. We get to court to say that no, the process is stopped now because she's laid a complaint.
So they did nothing. That was the excuse to delay.
We physically went down from 10th floor where the court is to 5th floor in Durban Regional. Department of Social Services is located in the same building, to be confronted by someone who's seemingly a PA or a receptionist of some kind, saying she was aware of the case, but questioning why it took her so long to lay the charges. And I was just shocked about that. About someone who could be so callous when this is a case that's in front of them where this offender has clearly now been found guilty. But asking questions like that, I threw my toys out of the cot. I said I take great offense. She was highly traumatized. After I then I went into, that's probably the only way that I sometimes can just deal with it, is go into professional mode.
He went into full-blown lawyer mode.
And I said, this is not how you handle a case like this. Long story short, there was a very professional social worker that was assigned, at least interviewed her before we...
The next day.
Before we left Durban, because again, we had to now make plans in terms of when we are there. Every time it's traveling, it's accommodation. And she was at least interviewed by the new social worker. And he went and she went and did the rest of the interviews, did a report. At least the court in the sentencing commended Department of Social Work on the report that was produced.
In the end.
Saying that it's not the usual standard kind of statements that they find in reports like that it was actually a thorough and specifically personalized report. So that just told me that this is the kind of thing that happens even when someone is found guilty, that Department of Social Services essentially just goes through the motions in terms
They
of
don't
this,
care.
In producing those reports. And those reports are important in terms of of sentencing, am I
Of
correct?
sentencing, exactly. So I think a step in this fight, first of all, it is the fight in terms of getting the matter
Heard.
to, at least for the trial to start. I mean, from 2018 to 2021, 2 years, various prosecutors getting a lawyer on watching
Yeah.
brief. The trial starts, goes through the trial. Well, various interruptions because the trial had started April, May, then lockdown again in July 21, riots, couldn't proceed, then proceeds in
Yeah.
August. You get to a guilty verdict, and then it's a fight again in terms of just getting a proper report in front of the court for sentencing. And then he was only eventually sentenced in December 21. So
What-
from August, this whole thing in October, and then eventually only in December that he was sentenced. And in between that time, he was a free man walking around still out on a warning.
But that's why they kept. I think there was a warrant of arrest out for him based on Simone's case, Jacques, when it was reopened, and he couldn't be arrested because he kept bringing sick notes.
So what was the sentence?
10 years.
Total of 10 years.
Yeah.
There were 4 counts.
And they were running concurrently?
No, not concurrently.
concurrently, no.
So concurrently means that it's a flat line. You could at the same time.
Yeah.
But she said no. She emphasized direct imprisonment, meaning he must be taken into custody immediately from court.
And he was?
Yes, he was, and then served 10 years in total. And she said after 5 years he would be eligible for parole. However, it was important, it was crucial. She emphasized this as well, that Simone and I needed to be contacted for, what is it? To be notified.
Notified if there's any application for parole.
Yeah.
Same thing that's happening with the Oscar Pistorius trial.
Everyone, yeah. So that process, yeah, she emphasized that process was important.
So I took specific note of, again, it's things that I'm familiar with. So he was sentenced in terms of section 276(1)(I)
which
of the
is?
Criminal Procedure Act, which states that you're only eligible for parole if you've got no more than 5 years left on your sentence.
And he's out,
I mean, he had
And
more
you were
than
not-
8 years.
left. And you were not informed.
Not at all. Not about the possibility of his release, not officially in any way. He sent messages to me via his friends from January this year, saying that he's getting out. But I contacted Sergeant Supersad as soon as my cousin saw him in Chatsworth, and he had no idea. He said it was the first he was hearing of it. So he immediately went to check his records. And he said he was not due.
And now?
Nothing. It's so...
So we inquired. We had to get the same attorney to, first of all, retrieve the court record to confirm that it was recorded as such. We've got the whole court record. So the sentencing is confirmed as 10 years effective sentence. The only response that's been coming from DCS was actually via media, because there was a publication that did an article. They requested comment from DCS, who indicated that he was released on medical parole, and that there wasn't sufficient time to conduct victim-offender dialogue prior to his release, because it was done immediately, something to that effect. We've instructed the attorney to write formally to DCS to confirm what they've got on record in terms of his sentence. why he was released on medical parole and why there was not a compliance with the court order to let Jess and Simone know that he was being, because as far as I'm concerned, they've completely contravened the court order. As far as my very brief understanding of the regulations on medical parole is concerned, you can't have more than 24 months left on your sentence. You, as an offender, you have to have either a terminal illness or you have to have an illness that falls within a range of illnesses that means that you cannot be cared for as an inmate. And
He's walking around in Chatsworth.
He is, and in fact, this is something that the magistrate very specifically considered in her sentencing. Considered a whole stack of medical notes and so forth, and clearly said that he can receive adequate care within Westville Prison. The only thing that we could somehow determine was that it seems that the sentence was not recorded as a full 10 years, according to DCS's records.
Oh yes, the
But
prison records are different.
We're still waiting we've written a formal letter, it's been a week now. Other than the media spokesperson speaking to a journalist with the answer that I just told you that you can read in the article. There's not been any response from DCS.
When my cousin called the prison, so I called the police officer, she called the prison to find out what was going on. The prison official she spoke to refused to give his name, but he did tell her there was only one sentence that was there, that was in their systems, and that was for indecent assault, and it was for 20 months or 2 years or something. And he told her that he had effectively served half of it, so he was released under correctional supervision. And he was quite rude to her. He told her, you should have known all of this. This should have been explained to you. So.
But then when the journalist requested comment, then the version changes to this being medical parole. So
they didn't tell Simone anything about medical parole.
No.
So
If you get an update, please let us know.
Definitely will.
But you were brutalized by the system. You were absolutely brutalized by the system. I've got absolutely no words for it because...
I think let's commend the magistrate and the prosecutor who eventually prosecuted the case. The prosecutor was good. The magistrate gave
a good sentencing.
I've sat through, and read many court judgments and was in court when judgments were delivered very long ago, but it was an extremely thorough judgment, exceptionally well treatment of his evidence versus Jessica and Simone's evidence. And so I can't commend the magistrate more than with, actually finding him guilty and the sentence. But for that to be treated as such by what we find now in DCS is it's just beyond ridiculous.
It seems like they've completely disregarded the conviction, the sentencing. They've done their own thing. It would have been so good if there was one database that police services, Department of Justice, Department of Correctional Services, social services, that they all used and everyone could update them, for their areas of responsibility. I guess this is me as an IT or an information system specialist talking. There's an opportunity there for something to be done, but we have confirmation that what the NPA has, what police services has, is in order. It's the information that they have is the same. It's just DCS that changed it. no regard. And their responsibility is to enforce the decisions that have been made by SAPS and the Department of Justice. But they didn't do that. They did what they wanted. And it horrifies me to think that, or to know that this is happening all the time. And then I get told by people, I'm sure with good intentions, just leave it, let God handle it. Let God deal with him. He's sleeping. He's a free man now. My nightmare is wide open again. There's nobody who can help me with that. I know he can't do anything to me physically. I'm not a 5-year-old girl anymore. But it fills me with terror knowing he is free. A pedophile is free. Justice has not been served. I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm the one suffering, not him. He can lie and just get away with it, so I can't keep quiet. That's why I'm still a warrior. I have to keep fighting. But it feels like it's killing me. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. So tired of this pain. And no matter how much I wish for it to go away, it just doesn't go away. So I have to give some kind of purpose to this pain. This is not something that anybody should go through. And I'm talking to people like you now because I need help. I can't do it alone anymore. Else to say.
If you've got a message for other women in similar circumstances out there, what would it be?
They can break your spirit. They can break your bones physically. But there are other people who can help you to stand up. I will help whoever needs help. But I'm not strong. There are people who have stood by me, other broken women. And together we are strong. Together we are stronger. I'd say speak up. Don't let them get away with it. This is not something that is new. This has been happening for ages. Our mothers, our grandmothers have died carrying what they thought was their shame. I've been told I brought dishonor to my family. Been told I'm looking for drama. You know, I'm educated, I have a family, I'm successful in work. So why am I bringing on this drama? I'm not bringing on anything, but I'm being real now because I can't pretend anymore. So I'd say, tell your story, because the truth needs to come out, and the truth does want to come out. There are people who can help. There are people who will hear. There are many people who just put others down, who don't want to hear. But if we who have been through this stand up together and speak together, then we can keep fighting. Then it'll help our daughters. It will help our sisters. It will help those people who don't have a voice. We can't just keep quiet. Everybody makes a little sound, does one small thing. It makes a huge difference. There are people who have killed themselves just because they cannot live with this pain anymore. And I know that feeling, and I understand that feeling. I cannot tell you how many times I've just wanted to die. How many times I feel like I just want to die because I think that's when I won't be able to feel this anymore. But when I hear somebody else say some little thing of encouragement, then it helps me and it tells me I have to give some purpose to the fact that I'm here. I don't want a woman who has survived what should have killed her to kill herself because of the pain. Does that make any sense? I don't have all the answers. But I just want to tell people who've been through anything similar to what I have, they are not alone. You're not alone. There are others who will stand with you. For now, that's all I can say.
Thank you very much. You are a warrior. You wouldn't have gone through this process if you were not a warrior. Anything that you would like to say by ending off?
To have now gone into this again where it's again a fight. It's completely unnecessary. But I mean, we've heard of these things happening at the highest level. So would it be any different at any other level? But I just wish that those responsible for contravening a court order, just trampling on justice, that they are brought to book. Whether that's in DCS or whether it's outside of DCS, wherever this took place, there should be accountability. And I just wish that would happen.
Thank you for speaking to us. I know it's been difficult. He wants to be part of it now and just give some love. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and this will not be the end. We will see each other in the future. Thank you.
I look forward to it.
Sure.
I've made a choice, I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed. I am your equal. I've empowered myself, I have practiced and trained. Fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard. We'll stand together. I'm a girl on fire. I'm not a victim. A girl on fire. I'll stand my